got to go because or else it's, you know.
Here we are at the loft of John Vandenbroek, and
Good morning.
John was one of the founding fathers of the California Classic, and we're going to interview him today. We're going to ask him a whole bunch of questions. And John, without further ado,
Hi, I'm John Vandenbroek. Good morning. I guess we're going to do a little interview here. I hope it works out. Well, go ahead. Ask.
John, how do you train your young birds, John?
How do you train young birds? Well, I think that it's important, like most anybody will tell you. I think you have to fly them every day until they get a little older and start working, and then you can kind of lighten up. But again, a lot of times we have problems here, and everybody's having the same problem as with hawks. But I think most important thing is feed them properly, and the younger birds, you got to put a lot of airtime on them.
John, I noticed that you're really big on hoops. What's the purpose of that?
Of what, of these boxes out here?
Yeah.
That's for training the young birds. They go out. What I do with the young birds, when I take them away from the parents, I put them in one of these pens, and then they go out here and they stay out here all day and look around and get homed in.
So they can see the surroundings
Yes.
and so on. Do you flag your birds, John?
Do I fly my birds?
Flag your birds.
Oh, no, not really.
They go up on
Throw
their
a
own.
can on them or something, you know, sit on the roof.
Okay, John. John's going to kick his birds up in the air for us, so we're going to get a chance to see him in the air right now.
All right, we're going to fly about 2 kits here.
You're starting a little slow. I got it covered. What do you look for in the air, Johnny?
Well, I'm still, I think, a little bit from the old school. I like velocity in birds. I like the birds that roll with the real style. And I also like the kid competition. I think it's good. I like birds that roll with the right, where they roll straight over backwards. Wings straight, up and down, I think it's really neat.
How long do you fly a bird before you consider him for stock, John?
Well, I think a good year. I'd like to fly longer than that, but the way things are with the hawks and stuff, I think once you get a real good one, it's hard to keep trying to fly them longer than that. I've got some up there that are probably 2-3 years old, but very few of them.
You know, Pinson, he always wrote about, that he preferred late developing pigeons, and some of the old Pinson stuff does come in late, and some of it does come in early. But what do you prefer, Johnny? Do you like them to come in early, medium, late, or
I kind of like the middle of the road.
middle of the road?
Middle of the road. Middle of the road. I think a lot of times when you get birds that come in too early, you end up maybe with too many birds that don't last. I think that great birds sometimes come apart later on when they get a little older and get a little bit of more roll down than you should. And then I think if you go with the real late developers, that's also a problem because, again, we're in this situation here where the predators are just terrible.
And what do you feed, as we're moving along, John, what do you feed your young birds, Johnny?
I try to feed the young birds when I first take them away from the parents. I feed them. I put a mix together of grain that doesn't have any corn, and then I also mix that with 14% with gut growth corn. And then as they get a little older, I put them on wheat and milo.
Birds, as you do your holdover teams, your old birds?
Yes, basically. After they get started, yes.
How about, Johnny, young birds, you know, that haven't developed into the role, do you fly them regularly, like the way you would fly your holdover birds? Because I've seen and talked to people about when the birds are the holdover birds, when they're older birds, when they're really pouring on the roll, they don't really fly them every day. What do you think about all that, Johnny?
You mean, I'm sorry to quite understand, but you say holdover birds you don't fly every day.
Yeah, your
Right.
old bird kit, you don't fly every day?
No, and I try to, during this time of the year, which is, like I say, December and January, the losses are pretty heavy here. So I try not to fly them hardly at all.
But how about the old birds? Let me restate that. The old birds, I've heard people say when they really develop in the role a lot, they really don't fly them every day.
Well, I think that's true. I think if you fly them every day, you take the roll out of them again.
Okay. Okay, in this particular family. Okay, when is it time to cull, Johnny, the birds and the young birds when they're...
Well,
how long?
The first thing I look at, like some young birds are up here right now that are flying out as a kid. Those are the ones I call. That's where I started. Birds that don't get good, they don't have a chance around here.
Right off the top.
Right off the top. Once in a while when I got one I really, really like, I might give it more chance than it really deserves, but most of the time your first instinct with a bird is proper.
Okay, Johnny. So it's interesting enough, you feed the same kind of grain to the young bird kit as you do the old bird kit, huh?
Right. I put a mix, like I say, of milo and wheat together, and then once in a while I give them some corn and that kind of stuff. Maybe once every other week or so I give them a good helping of corn and maybe a regular 14% pigeon.
Johnny, how about, since the birds are up in the air, how about color factor, Johnny? Does color factor have to do anything with the roll?
Well, I have two families of birds, as you know. I have an English family, which is a lot of color, and I have a hardcore Pinson family, which is your red checks and dark checks. And I don't know, I'm still maybe from an old school or something, but I believe there's nothing like a good dark check. I'm not saying that they don't get good rollers in all the colors, but I mean, maybe it's just the way that dark check looks when they roll like a champ, but I just love a good dark check.
We've been talking, me and you, John, we've been talking over the couple of years about, putting the light colors back under the dark colors. How's that been working for you?
I think that works really good.
What is it? Does it really loosen up the roll, the dark ones?
I think you're right. I think it absolutely loosens the roll up.
Okay. Ready. John's birds have skied up. John's birds got good flying abilities.
Yeah.
We were talking about, John, myself, and you, we were talking about, I think we were talking about color factor. And I know for a fact that yourself and Doug Brown have been doing some studying pertaining to color factor pertaining to the roll, right? Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that, a little bit more, Johnny?
Yeah, we both kind of work with the same family of birds, and we've done a lot of make sure that in our breeding program that we take and put a dark bird on a light bird, try to clash the eyes, try to clash the blues and the reds, and then Doug goes a little further than I do. Doug likes the different color varieties, which is very interesting.
Yeah, we're going to be interviewing him pertaining to this.
Good.
But how about eye sign, Johnny? How about the eye color as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like to clash eyes when I breed.
Okay, we're going to take a look inside his stock loft and the way he has his birds and so on. Okay, tell us when you want us to say something. I know I know the Harris is pretty good.
Here we are in the stock loft with John Vanderbroek. These are
These are my Harris birds. Just put these together. They just about 2 days ago I put them all together. And there's a real combination here of older birds, younger birds. And as you see, there's quite a color combination. Bars run real heavy in this family. And sometimes I even try to breed the bars out a little bit.
How many pairs do you like to breed out of every year, John?
Well, this year I was really going to take it easy, and then I borrowed some more Harris birds from Carl Dorton and from Van Koppel. And so, as you see, I have 7 boxes on this side and 7 boxes on the side that's just to the right of us. So that puts me 14 pair here. I've got another 8 individuals in the back here, and then I have also room for 6 more pair inside my other loft. So, as you see, I can put together about 25 pair or so.
I see how you got 2 nest bowls inside each nesting pen. What is that for?
Well, that's, they lay 1 set of eggs and hatch them and then raise youngsters, and that way the hen will move to the other bowl and lay her eggs on the second round.
Mm-hmm. It started warming up, so that's why you decided to start breeding?
Yeah, well, usually I try to put my pairs together about 1st of January, and this year, like I say, I was going to go real slow, and then I've decided I had a wonderful kid of Harris birds this year, and I flew them all away, and the hawk really terrorized me. So I'm going to try it one more time this year, and then what I'm going to do with this family of youngsters, I'm going to fly them all summer, and then next November I'm going to lock them down until springtime.
Which is your main producing pair you think you might have in this breeding loft?
Let me grab one here. This blue cock here the blue cock that I just grabbed, he's produced some real fine youngsters for me. He's a 1990 pigeon. I took 3rd place in the California Classic a couple of years ago. That was a baby out of him. He's pretty potent. And this guy over here with the draggy wings, he's been a real good one. These are directly off of some of my old Harris birds. The rest of the birds in here, here's a blue cock that I borrowed from Carl Dorton. Let me grab this little hen here. This little bird has been a super little hen. I've really used her heavy. Next year, the one sitting next to her there is one of her daughters that was a tremendous roller.
This to the left is one of her daughters, right?
Yes, the one to the left, the other dark one.
How many feet does she roll in the air?
I'd say she was a good 30, 40 feet. Really a really nice one.
And how long and when did you decide to stock this bird out?
Well, when she was one of my kit from last year, and when I've started losing most of the kit, I was able to save 2 of them. She was one of the best ones in the kit, so she flew for a year. And then this little red bar cock, I'm going to grab here.
John, what do you take into consideration?
1 second, John. This was also the only other one I was able to really save this year.
Which one's that?
The little red bar with the muffs. He was really a fast, nice pigeon.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, Johnny, go ahead.
John, what do you take in consideration when selecting a breeder, Johnny?
Well,
Because I know what to look for, but we want to put it down in tape, so those that are just starting off, Johnny, can get a ballpark figure, and
well, like the two young birds.
Take into
The
consideration.
2 young birds that I just showed right now. The cock's very typey. I kind of come from a little bit from the old Kowalski school. I love a good keel setting on a pigeon.
Okay.
And to begin with, I like a good roller. And I think if you breed out of rollers, you're going to produce more rollers.
That's a powerful statement.
And if you, yeah, I think it only makes good sense. But I think also, if you have a family of birds, like the cocks in this family tend to run a little bit large. And most of these cocks in here I've raised myself. I try like heck to try to get the size down a little bit on the cocks. And I'm having some fairly good success with that.
Why did you want to reduce the size of the cocks, John?
Well, in this family, like I say, the cocks run kind of large.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like real large pigeons. Like the one I pointed out before, the father to the classic hen. He's about as large as I want to go. I have him mated this year to that little blue bar hen up there, which I flew out about 1989, I guess. She's one of the first ones I stocked out of this family. I've dealt with this family since 1989. They've been a lot of fun. They're tremendous raisers of youngsters, and they come in a real variety of colors.
Well, here's a question I want to ask you, Johnny. Much has been said concerning inbreeding and outcrossing and mixing different family of bloodlines and maintaining pure strains. Which do you prefer, Johnny? And what do you practice in your own loft?
I would say I like, let me start from the beginning. I think, like this family here, O.D. Harris in England had this family since 1920s. And so there's been a lot of inbreeding done in this family. I still do some, but what I'm doing now, as I mentioned before, I've borrowed some birds from Carl Dorton, got some from Van Koppel, some from John Sandoval, Jim Lippincott, some of the guys that mess with the Harris birds. And what I'm trying to do now is trying to cross them as far away from each other within the same family. And I'm seeing a little more success with that because I believe this family has already gone about as far as you want to go with brother-sister matings and that kind of thing. I've tried a little of that. I've had some success, and then taking those and trying to cross them out as far as you can go or put them on my Pinson pigeon seems to work real well.
Okay, okay. So, like what Pinson did.
Let's go next door here. We'll take a look at a few more. We're gonna make this real quick.
Tell me when you're on. John, I noticed that the O.D. Harris birds have a lot of color, man.
Yeah, they're a real interesting family of birds, and one of the experiments that I'm doing is I'm working with the recessive reds. When I first got these birds, they were mostly all blue bars. So now I've bred a bunch of recessives and grizzles and stuff out of these. And also what I'm trying to do is, there's a lot of grizzle in the recessive red Harris birds. I'm trying to breed a little of that out of them. But they're an interesting family of birds.
They didn't come dark check too much, did they, John?
No.
And I heard through the grapevine you're going to be importing some more birds from England, John?
Yes, I'm getting I'm getting some birds from Bill O'Callahan, which again are the O.D. Harris family. And then Chuck Zeller and I and Thurman Davis bought also a kit of birds from Mr. Kitson in England. And they're going to be arriving in about 2 weeks. So looking forward to that.
Johnny, you know a lot of stories about O.D. Harris and you know and about stories about guys in England and stuff like that. But one of the stories, Johnny, that you told me that I really like, I would like for it to be recorded here, is a story about Bill Barrett when he told his disciples that his birds, that one of his main birds that was a white hen came from the loft of O.D. Harris. Can you elaborate more on that, John?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about that story, but I think a lot of times in England, Harris didn't get a lot of credit because he didn't fly in a lot of the competitions. And I think behind the Barrett birds there was a white hen that he strayed in that belonged to O.D. Harris, which was I guess one of his foundation hens. I'm showing you a little black hen here.
So what happened, Johnny, in the story? I mean, what happened?
Well, I guess they just really didn't want to give him a whole lot of credit. I mean, that's about all I know about it.
Is it true that he shared that in his deathbed?
Yes, I think he did.
That's interesting.
This cock here was raised by Carl Dorton.
Oh, dirty laundry.
And I was able to pinch him from Dorton, and he's been a tremendous cock for me. And this little hen here, again, we're talking about birds. I never flew her because she was out of one of the old Harris hens and out of one of my best cocks. And I had the pair together for 1.5 years, and they had one fertile egg. So sometimes, you know, you don't have to fly out everything, because if I'd have lost her, I'd have really felt bad. I think she's just an absolute beautiful hen.
Johnny, do you consider her, she's real typey. Do you consider her the right type?
Oh,
aiming for?
Definitely do. Definitely do.
That, without question, Pete, that's a typey bird right there.
She's gorgeous. And like I say, I'm not afraid to use other people's birds. This hen here, Jim Lippincott flew out. And it was off of a hen that I had loaned to Jim Lippincott, so...
What family was that?
That's all Harris. This stuff is
all Harris.
All Harris.
It's all pure O.D. Harris. There's no crosses from other families in this that I know of.
So, John, we're going to get an opportunity to video hopefully three of the best male cocks that you've raised from the Harris stock, and three hens from the Harris stock. So that should be interesting coming up.
Okay.
I'd like to get into that. How about you, Pete?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
For the record.
I noticed how you got a lot of Harris birds and Pinson birds also. Which birds do you prefer better?
It's a complete toss-up. I love that old family of Pinson birds, and I got these birds from Joe Keyser and Joe Borges. I've loved these birds since I've had them,
And like I say, like this year, I finally had a really super kid of them, and the falcon came on me, and I didn't shut him down, and like I say, it was a disaster.
What made you lean towards getting another shipment of birds from England?
Oh, I don't know, just maybe for the thrill, the fun of it, and just to see how I wanted to compare what Bill O'Callahan had done with the Harris birds compared to what maybe I've done with them.
That's interesting.
How much more go do these English birds got than the Pinson birds have?
I really think that these pigeons here are very similar in their flying ability and rolling ability to the Pinson birds.
Are these birds considered more competition kid-style birds or
No, I don't
individual
think so.
flyers?
I don't think so. I don't, like I say, I've had them since 1989, and I'm still learning every day about them. I've worked hard to get selfs out of this family, like this little black hen.
So it's something you got to work on and breed.
And I still don't know this family as well as maybe I should, or I wish I did. But like I say, every year if you have a nice kid and you fly them away, you don't learn much. But about half of them now that I have here, I would say, are birds that I raised. So that's what I'm trying to do here is, I still have some of the old ones. They're 1978, 1980 pigeons. But I'm trying to get to the point where all the birds in these stock lofts are birds that I've raised, or one of my friends has raised and it's been flown out.
Well, these are some nice pigeons. Let's go see a couple of Pinson birds.
Okay. I built this loft here. There are 7 individual pens. I've always been the type of breeder that I don't like to put pigeons in little bitty lofts. So I built these, and I know it takes a lot of room for 7 individuals. But here is where I kind of put pairs together, where I'm crossing my families, or I have some certain birds that I want to make sure there's no error in their breeding. Like in there, you might get an error or two, but they're all the same family of pigeons. I have here, we're talking about hardcore Pinson birds. I have here a grandson, a living grandson off of the 514 hen. He's a 1978 pigeon.
Could I get a closer look at that
Yeah,
bird?
so that makes him 16 years old. That's him right there. And he hardly misses a beat. I think I've raised about 10 youngsters off him this year. And what I do with him, I raise 2 sets of youngsters off of a hen, and then I move a new hen in here. Right now I haven't made it to an Odie Harris hen. And they have 1 youngster in there. The other youngster's being fed out by another pair because I don't let him raise 2, but I do let him raise 1. I think with an old cock like that, if you keep taking his youngsters away, I think you're going to lose him. But he likes it. He raises 1 youngster with no problem whatsoever. And like I say, his father, if numbers mean anything to anybody, was 3859, which was off of 119 and 514. So he's kind of an interesting bird. He was given to me as a gift from Joe Borges.
That's nice.
So he's a good old boy, and he's raised some fine youngsters for me this year.
Okay.
These birds here, this is an old Smith hen and a cock which comes down off of, well, I guess the Bill Pinson clay hen. He's probably about 4 generations removed from that. Okay, we go next door here. And as you see with these individual lofts here, they're very roomy. These are a couple of hardcore birds. The gray one on the nest, I don't think you can see him very well. He's pretty much he's a bird from Van Koppel. He's also real close up to a Bill Pinson pigeon. He comes off of Van Koppel's 514 family, which came off of, I guess, a brother off of 514.
Okay, right now we're going over a pigeon on this other cage. You said it was off a clay hen. Where did that line start from?
Bill Pinson pigeon. Again, the bird that I guess became famous out this way was 272, which came down off of the clay hen. A bird I think that comes from Herb Sparks, basically.
Herb Sparks? Isn't there some
Hugo Bloss
in there?
Yeah, Hugo Bloss raised the bird, and I think it ended up with Herb Sparks.
Mm-hmm.
2 Pinson pigeons. Again, the hen is kind of off my 514 line. The cock, again, off the 272. Again, clashing the families. I don't never make the 514s to themselves because, you know, everybody's done that for 30 some odd years, and we've proven that takes the roll out of them.
It's quite a late bird, right?
No, yeah, but now with the 272 pigeons in here, the birds develop fairly early. And they develop in all different, some develop early, some develop a little later. This is a pair of Harris birds. That cock has been awesome. And he's also a neat color. He's a recessive red, but he's also ash red. And he shows that. He shows blue in his tail. And out of this cock here, you get a multitude of colors. The little hen is right off of 2 of the import. I don't want her to fly, Pete. I don't like her. Yeah, she's right off of 2 of the Odie Harris imports, and this was a nice little hen. I didn't fly her either. I have to admit to that. That was one of the first ones I raised out of those old birds. In the first round, I never flew. I just locked them up. There's a 514 type of pigeon, the gray cock up above, and the recessive red hen was a bird that. Again, this is interesting. I put a pair of recessive reds together. They're 272. All were a bunch of nice rollers I wasn't able to hang on to. Everybody wanted one. And I went and got this one back because a friend of mine flew it for 2 years and it never rolled. And I think that works a lot of times when you get a family of rollers and you take one that's right type, really a beautiful hen. I think it works sometimes where you use the one out of the family that doesn't roll.
Okay, John has pulled out some of his favorite stock cocks he has in his yard. And we're going to go over them a little bit. So can we get John Vanderbroek?
Okay, before we do that, I got just a cute little pigeon I brought out here. I thought maybe you guys would like to see this. It's a mosaic. And he's 2 years old. He's gone through his first molt now. So as you see, he's kind of a crazy colored pigeon.
What causes the bird to come out of mosaic, Johnny?
Well, I've always been told that either an egg splits or else 2 cocks might fertilize the same egg. I mean, I don't.
That's what I've heard too.
I don't claim to be an expert on it, but I've heard both.
Well, we
things,
just want
but,
your input,
but
Johnny.
He's kind of a crazy colored little pigeon. Oh, we put him away. Center are Harris pigeons, and the 2 on the outside are, I guess you'd say, out of my 272 pigeons. They've all been really nice birds for me. This cock here was raised by Dennis Early. As you see, I'm not opposed to pinching a bird from somebody. These two Harris cocks, I raised this one, Jim Lippincott raised that one. And then this one here comes off of my 272 line. This cock was a great cock. He was a good roller, and he's really been a nice cock in the loft for breeding purposes. He's also done good in a couple of shows he's won. So not only do I like his type, but so do a lot of other people. He's got a tremendous eye. I don't think the camera will do his eye justice. We'll see if we can show his eye to the camera. And this is where I've had some luck. These come from basically out of my Hugo Blas side of my Pinson family. And the birds have just got the best eye in the world. And the color that's really worked for me, like to talk about a color in a family, and this is probably just my, what's worked for me, is these recessive reds. They have just been absolutely wonderful pigeons. This guy, we had him a while ago and I made a few statements about him. He's an ash red grizzle. He throws just about every color that you can imagine. He's got a nice clean white eye. Really got a wonderful keel setting, small, typey little bird. And with the Harris birds...
These are the things you take into consideration?
Yeah, and with the Harris birds, the wing. I mean, just an awesome wing. And with my Pinson family, you'll find the wing is much larger, much wider, a lot more feather in it. The cupping on these Harris birds, even the bad ones, have got tremendous wings on them. So this has been a really nice pigeon.
All right, John.
This black white-flighted mixed-wing bird here is the first bird that I raised when I started the Harris stuff. And he was one ugly baby, and I didn't fly him. Again, like I said, the very first round of these birds, I just wanted to make sure that I had a few. And this ugly duckling turned into a wonderful bird. There's a bunch of guys throughout California got babies off of this one. I have a friend of mine lives in Marietta. He's got a whole family he's made out of one son off of this pigeon. So this is a pigeon that I would never part with. Again, these birds are fit right through your hand. You set them in your hand,
They glide through your hands. They're just
All,
really.
these are all you look for, Johnny?
Yes, I really do. And again, he's a very typey little cock. Again, a tremendous wing strength that these birds have. And like I say, here's a bird that's never flown, and he's been a tremendous pigeon for me. So I guess it gets down to it. When you pick a bird and you're not going to fly him, you've got to make sure you pick a good one. And if you put a bird made a bird that you haven't flown, and you get 3 or 4 rounds of youngsters out of it, maybe you try them on a second hen, and if it doesn't work, then you know you're going in the wrong direction, and the bird's not worth using. It doesn't take very long to find out, take a bird like this and stock it, and raise youngsters out of them. It don't take you long to figure out if the bird is worth using or not. Okay. This again is another pigeon out of the Bill Pinson family. It's a beautiful colored pigeon. And as you see, the wings a little bit longer and wider.
As you were saying earlier.
Right. And again, I guess you call this a mahogany, which is spread on red. It's the same thing as a black pigeon would be if he was a blue factor bird. Again, a tremendous eye. I mean, the pupil's dead center, nice ring around the eye, just beautiful eyes on these birds. So I think these are probably a good example of the 2 families that I have. I have a bunch more. I probably have too many pigeons. But these are 4 of my favorite stock cocks.
Without question, dynamite. All of them are dynamite, John.
Okay, these again are 4 of my favorite stock hens. 2 Odie Harris hens, 2 hardcore hens. In fact, one of them is a daughter to this little hen. I'd like to start with this little hen and
Okay, John.
show you her eye. She's 272 family of birds, again, that I created out of Hugo Bloss, Borges Keyser type of stuff. This hen has probably got as nice as eye as I've ever seen for a bird that's 4 or 5 years old. This hen, again, a very interesting pigeon. Very early developer, came in very deep pigeon, and then became way too deep. She rolled down one day over here in the pasture and then set the world's record for parlors, I think. I was going to get rid of her, and Mike Curtis, a friend of mine, asked me, he says, you got to try to use this hen one time before you get rid of her. Well, I've used her now she's a 1990, so she's in her 5th season, and she has never once produced a roll down. So sometimes I think you got to take into consideration, is the bird really a roll down, or just maybe it can't handle the roll? And everybody I think that knows me knows this hen, and she is a
Without question,
tremendous
Johnny.
hen.
She's got body type. She's got body type to her. Make sure you get her, Pete.
The recessive red cock that I had out here is a half brother to her, and I put the pair together, and this little hen was produced. We've seen her earlier in my individual stock loft. This is the one I said that a friend of mine flew for 2 years and didn't. Whoa, take it easy. That didn't roll. But again, I love strength in wings. You handle a pigeon and it doesn't fight you with its wing. I don't like that. But, so sometimes, like I say, I've seen some of the brothers and sisters off this one in the air. I kept one that I was going to keep for myself, and I lost. So I went and got this pigeon back from a friend of mine that moved to Washington.
That's a nice one.
And
John, I noticed that you're deep into the eye sign, John.
yeah, I like eyes. I really like pigeons with eyes. You'll see very few bull-eyed pigeons here, even though they run fairly heavy in my English birds. And I try to mate away from that. So now we'll go over these hens here. This hen's number is 1070, and I think most everybody knows her too. She's my original youngster I raised, first hen I raised out of the Harris stuff. And my whole basic family here, I think every one of them's got a piece of her behind it. She's a tremendous little pigeon. Again, a pigeon that I didn't fly. But it didn't take long to find out that she was a good one.
They come drop-tailed, don't they, John?
Yeah, they have, a lot of them, as they get a little older, they drop their wings below their tail.
How old is this bird?
This bird is at 1990 also.
Is there any hindrance to the roll, John, when they have...
But you won't see that in the younger ones. Once in a great while you'll have one that does it, but I don't think it makes.
Have any hindrance
I
to
don't
the
think
roll.
it makes any difference. And as they get older, and I guess for sure some of the cocks, they really drop their wings and they drag their wings. But again, another beautiful pigeon with a beautiful white eye, just a wonderful pigeon. And a tortoiseshell like this is, you get such wonderful colored pigeons and stuff out of them.
Do you have any preference in eyes, like yellow or white?
No, I don't. I really don't. And as you see, these are all pearl-eyed hens I happen to bring out, but I've got plenty of orange-eyed ones. This is a little hen I have mated to the, oops. Let's see here, let me wipe her off a little bit.
Nothing special on the roll, whichever comes out white or yellow.
Right,
Are they
I have
both
no-
equal to you?
I have no preference.
Some are 30 footer, some are 20 foot, some will come in.
This is the little hen I have mated to that old Pinson cock right now. So I'm crossing that guy back into my Harris stuff. I started this year with him, kind of mated him to a hardcore cross, and now the last 2 times I've got some. I also mated this hen to him, so I've got some youngsters out of that mating now.
I noticed, John, that your birds are, your cocks and your hens, they're not big pigeons. They're
No, I try to
they're
keep.
medium to small.
I try to keep the size to a medium.
You say they perform better in the air if they're medium-sized pigeons?
I would think so. You know,
Medium to small.
yes.
They roll a lot faster, more frequently?
Yeah, I think so. I also think that you get some larger pigeons that roll good too. I don't think that size has that much to do with it, but I think it's kind of like a wheel on a tire on a truck. You know, a larger tire takes more time to go around. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Johnny, I noticed that your birds don't have excessive feather. They just really tight. The feather's really tight to the body.
I like that too. I think in that with the Pinson line, you got to be real careful because you can create that real
Are you
quick.
trying to say that the Pinson birds come with loose feather at times? I mean,
Yeah, I
some
think
will
the
run loose
Pinson
feather?
birds have more feather, more looser feather. These Harris birds, basically, like I say, with the way their wing cups and as tight as they are, they don't seem to have a lot of feather. You very seldom get one with a lot of feather. Sometimes you'll get one that's real soft, which I don't like either. But I think that's what you got to be kind of careful with these hardcore birds, as I call them, the Pinson birds, that that you don't get the great big wings on them, big wide wings with massive feathers on them.
Johnny, could you also show us 3 of your best spinners, 3 or 4 best of the best spinners that you've raised in this backyard of yours?
Well, I got
So
one.
we can have you in camera here, Johnny, in the
Okay.
video.
Okay. I would say at one time this hen was, but I guess once they rolled down. You want to
Then we
start
can
it?
elaborate.
You start.
Okay, now we're going to go over some of John Vanderbroek's offspring that he raised off of those stock pairs we just seen a little while ago. And he says these are well kept pigeons. They spin well in the air.
John has brought out his best spinners out to show us, and he's going to elaborate on each bird. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I want to start with this little dark check hen here. She's a Odie Harris pigeon. She was out of that dark check white flighted cock that we looked at.
Uh-huh.
This was the hen that came in 3rd in the classic Kenny Billings flew in Modesto. Bird was tremendous pigeon in the air.
How many feet did she go, John?
She was great. I'd say she was 30 feet consistently. And Kenny used to tell me all the time, she rolled herself apart pretty much. She was kind of a soft pigeon, and Kenny kind of kept her alive, and I still owe Kenny for that. He fed her up a little extra each day, which I think these Harris birds, that's the type of pigeon they are. They need a little extra feed. The next 2 here, I brought this red check hen out here. She's the mother to the recessive red hen that I am so high on. And she raised me this dark check this year out of a Pinson cock. And this hen has been awesome. She was an awesome bird in the air, about 15 feet as fast as anything that I think I've seen. And again, she comes from the Hugo Blas side of my hardcore family.
Okay, Johnny.
And she's been a really neat stock hen. And this hen, I don't know if she's going to do it here, but she's got a heck of a personality. She doesn't move much.
She's a champion in the show pen as well.
Yeah, she's never lost in the show pen. She's been a good one.
Oh, better get that down, Pete. Send Dick
Never
Stevens.
lost, huh? Well, she hasn't showed very often either, maybe once or twice. And this was the best pigeon that I raised this year. This is again out of that hen, so this is the half sister to that recessive red. Van Koppel flew out a bird for me this year out of my stuff, another recessive red cock, and we're going to put this mating together. There'll be a half brother sister mating. And
What's the other side of
off my 514 stuff.
514 stock? So
This
514 is
off of
alive.
this is a son. This is the father to this pigeon is a son off of my old 514 pigeon. Really sweet hen. This hen was very deep, very fast. This was one of the first real good rollers I raised out of the Harris hen. She's one of the first ones I flew. She was the second generation of the ones I raised, or second batch of youngsters. And again, very nice, typey pigeon, very alert with the eyes. Look at her, she's looking everywhere, looking all over the place to see what's happening. She's been also, for the last 3 years or so, been a great stock hen. And I guess this is what Odie Harris's birds first all basically were blue bars.
What an incredible eye, John.
Yes, she's a gorgeous hen.
I can see it from here.
She's a beauty, and she was really good in the air. This little cock I raised this year, and again he was off of a hen I pinched from Jim Lippincott and a cock I pinched from Carl Dorton. But this was probably the nicest little cock that I've raised to date as far as a roller goes. And he's what I'm after. Nice little typey, small bird, not a lot to him. And like I say, after I lost most of my kit this year, I put him away, and in fact I'm breeding out of him this year.
Johnny, we still have a little time left. I know you have another engagement, but I want to ask you, what are the 3 best birds that you've seen to date? In the air, anywhere.
This hen here, the black hen, is as good as anything I've seen. I've seen over my friend's Doug Brown. He had a little bird one time that he's locked up, and it seemed like she stood still in space. That was one of the nicest ones I've seen.
Hope we get a chance to record that. And number 3?
I think a very deep, fast pigeon I've seen over Jerry Higgins kind of impressed me.
All right, and how about the best 3 kits you've seen, John?
I think one of the kits that Higgins was flying a couple of years ago, just recently in our last fly, Doug Brown, a very dear friend of mine, I guess you guys are going to do an interview with him.
Yeah, we sure are.
He probably flew as nice a kit as I've ever seen. Joe Borges in Modesto, who some of these hardcore birds come from, and he's just a total hardcore person. He got his birds from Sparks way back in 1977. He flew a kit of about 50 birds one day that was awesome. Just an awesome kit.
Johnny, we want to thank you, Johnny, for...
I appreciate this. I appreciate putting these ugly little birds on tape.
Yeah, John, covered all the areas.
Okay.
Who would you like to thank, Johnny?
Joe Keyser and Joe Borges gave me some of the nicest pigeons I had a chance to start with. Hugo Blas, even though kind of hard to get any birds from Hugo. And then Mike Curtis taught me a lot about pigeons. And then I'd like to thank everybody that participates in that California Classic that I put on every year. And you get one of these t-shirts for doing it. I think it's a great event, and Arnold Jackson's flying it this year, and that's where I got to go now. We're going to go take some inventory, see what we have left. And I want to thank you guys for letting me do this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John, for having us.